Last video was a little bit of a Debbie Downer, wasn't it? As the realization that fantasy, a style, a genre and a setting that many of us have known and loved since we were children is dead is a harsh one, and no doubt about it, and yet there is a bright side even to this. A silver lining to putrefaction, if you will, wriggly and worm-like though it might be, namely that fantasy had of course been sick for a very, very long time. To the point where Witcher Blood Origin dragging it out of bed and stomping its skull open on the pavement might actually have been nothing more than blessed relief. As the body dies, the virus that caused its demise expires alongside it. Diversity, representation, and wokeness in general, the fatal cause of the decline and demise of fantasy, just like it is currently putting Star Wars out of its misery as well, having reduced one of the biggest and hottest franchises in entertainment, Star Wars, to nothing more than a direct-to-television exclusive melodrama with failing toy sales. It is almost remarkable, but the biggest benefit of all of this, and the biggest sign that this might finally be the final end of the mind virus that is wokeism, is the fact that our opposition is starting to get worried as well, realizing that their grasp on pop culture and the populace in general is failing and weakening, and might even already have dissipated, in fact. 2022 was pop culture's year of violent denial, says Polygon, the site most famous for its absolutely disgraceful video game footage of Doom, where what I can only assume to be a one-armed cripple with severe brain hemorrhage at the time of playing attempted and mostly failed to get through the first few minutes of Doom. It was quite something, and I certainly do recommend you look it up on YouTube, as you gotta see it to believe it, really. The highest grossing film of 2022, Top Gun: Maverick, is a movie with a giant void in its center. It starts by saying, critically acclaimed for its craft and verisimilitude, which is a fancy and pompous way of saying realism, by the way, which I don't agree with. Top Gun was not a particularly realistic movie, though I guess at least it was somewhat accurate in the representation of, well, the props, I guess. But hey, to a layman's view, I'm sure it was relatively convincing. In a world where blockbusters thrive on unreality, the film features Tom Cruise reprising his role as the ace pilot Maverick to train a new generation of hotshots on a mission of vital importance. Oh, that sounds good, doesn't it? Someone has a terrible weapon of mass destruction and he must be taken out. Who has these weapons? It doesn't matter. Correct. It genuinely doesn't. The film doesn't say. Naming them would be worse than the film's heroes failing their mission. It would rob the audience of something to feel good about. Now there's a non sequitur. And get used to it, there's going to be a lot of it, as this entire article is, well, part desperate attempt to produce more clicks for Polygon, a site which, I mean, this article has 66 comments. Make no mistake, by the way, a lot of people keep mentioning, like, why isn't gaming journalism dead already? Oh, it is. It is absolutely dead. 66 comments on a major mainstream gaming news website. For reference, the last video, The Death of Fantasy, I made has 1,215. And that is only the people that feel so strongly about whatever you were saying that they felt the urge to comment. This shit is dead. But investment keeps it afloat via the ESG score, which we've mentioned previously as well. So this is my point here, right? The audience something to feel good about. Here's the thing. I am pretty sure most audiences would feel more than happy about the movie bombing Iran, or bombing some Middle Eastern country, or some terrorist faction that had somehow created these weapons of mass destruction. It isn't that the audience wouldn't feel good about it. Maverick decides to avoid mentioning the country or who owns it or any details because it is explicit specifically not making a comment about geopolitics. It doesn't have a political message. Okay, if Maverick has a message at all, it's, hey there, awesome-ass moviegoer, you cool person who paid money to see this show, we're gonna give you the coolest fighter jet action that we can, and we hope you enjoy it. That's Maverick's entire message. And you know what? It worked out pretty goddamn well, as it grossed, what, $1.45 billion? I mean, it is one of the biggest movie successes in recent history, and it has no message whatsoever. That, if anything, should be an even louder and clearer message to the entirety of the entertainment industry. Taking in 2020's pop culture often felt like an exercise in denial, much like in our real-world lives as institutions, government and public health continue to erode in the face of authoritarian conspiracy-addled minority and a continuing pandemic. Oh boy, there's a lot to unpack there, isn't it? Did I mention yet, by the way, that this article is completely divested from reality? Part of the reason why I wanted to cover this one is because this reminds me, in a way, of the early 2000s articles of its style, when our opposition movement didn't really know what it was doing. It simply knew that it hated everything, and it knew that calling those things racist would give them into positions of power in it. They didn't really have a formed philosophy or anything, they were simply anti-everything popular, so long as it could benefit them in the long run. There's two. Our institutions of government and public health continue to erode in the face of authoritarian conspiracy-addled minorities. The Twitter files have essentially proven to us that the conspiracy theory-addled minorities have so far been, well, slam dunk right on practically everything they've said. Government was influencing social media? Check. FBI was influencing social media? Check. FBI was suppressing the Hunter Biden laptop? Check. Twitter was suppressing COVID information? Check. The government was directing them to do this? Check, check, check. Most of these things have been confirmed true at this point, and we already knew they were. Now we are simply sitting with the evidence to confirm it as well. And continuing pandemic. Oh, you delusional soul. Okay. COVID was a thing, and it was, hey, at the very least, a mild threat, absolutely, to our economy, if nothing else, but it hasn't been a genuine threat for ages. I mean, holy hell. I went to the cinema the other day to The Battle of Narvik, a Norwegian movie about the Battle of Narvik, which was a really cool one, by the way, and it was a good movie too. Again, no message, no point, just, hey, look at this cool point in history. It has some bloody pride in it, and you know what the coolest part is? It represents all parts as simply human effing beings. Like, there are German characters in that show. Is that late World War II, the invasion of Narvik by the British and French after it had been occupied by the Germans, and also the Norwegian military involved as well. It has German characters in it that are genuinely sympathetic, that seem to just be doing what they need to do to secure people's livelihood. Like, they seem apologetic for the things they have to do. There are bad British characters in it that are abusing people as spies, knowing they're placing their lives in danger, because to them, of course, they need to win the goddamn war. All sides are represented as simply human. There's no propaganda whatsoever, and God, it was refreshing. But back to my point, the movie theater was packed, and there was not a mask in sight, not a one. Nobody was caring about social distancing, nobody was wearing face covers. It's simply just a non-issue today. Even as the media hits us over the head with, oh, it's a new type of COVID, oh, it's a new wave, oh, we're swimming in viruses. That was actually a legitimate headline in Norwegian news media. We are swimming in the virus. God damn, it is over. Let it go. And stop using it as an excuse for anything and everything. The already shaky structure undergirding the business of entertainment began to collapse even as the executives in charge attempted to power through as if nothing was wrong. Well, this is in part correct, but the thing is, the executives have already made massive changes to how they are trying to market and sell their entertainment. It is just that it is failing because it is woke. And that is also the reason why, as we'll get up to in a moment here, the movie industry, still reeling from the pandemic and shareholder-fueled focus on streaming because it's profitable, attempted to return to a world where people would show up for movies in theaters, despite real-world circumstances that rendered this expectation, foolish. Well, it isn't. Again, COVID's been over for a year plus now, straight up. And dizzying number of COVID-era shift in strategy that left audiences unsure of what they could even expect anymore. Nonsense. Even Disney, the de facto box office champion, failed to make an impression as its most acclaimed animated features, like Turning Red, were relegated to streaming, while mediocre or poorly marketed films flopped. Every single link in here is linking to another Polygon article, by the way. Every last one of them. This article is as much a desperate attempt to gain a few more clicks in December as it is anything else. The examples they're making here is Buzz Lightyear and Strange Worlds. Both movies which flopped because of their wokeness. Strange New Worlds has not a single character that is just a straight regular dude in it. As for Buzz Lightyear, its entire marketing push was, hey, we've got a lesbian kiss, guys, and we were not going to let the Saudi Arabians take it away from us. Scree, ree. And for some reason, it failed. Weird. Even as, of course, it fired its primary voice talent that people were likely to actually go see. It was ridiculous. Marvel Cinematic Universe, phase that felt aimless, again, definitely, because it's now working on the B and the C listers and race swapping whatever it can, and a Star Wars brand that once dominated theaters, retreating to television series documenting its past. Well, that's the thing. That it once dominated theaters before Disney bought it. Star Wars domination of the movie theaters is pre-Rey era shit. Even Rey, which did earn money, was only popular, quote-unquote, because people couldn't believe that it was that bad. Like, people would actually show up to the movies going like, surely the last one was a fluke. No, it was all part of a real plan, you see. And again, wokeism is what has reduced Star Wars to a television series now. It's no longer movies, it's no longer multimedia amazingness, it's Andor. It's boring guerrilla shit nonsense that nobody cared about. Andor was so uninteresting that it was the first Star Wars show to completely and utterly fail to draw any audience of any type. I mean, goddammit, we've had a Boba Fett series that failed. Boba Fett, goddammit. The Mandalorian's success was because people thought it was Boba Fett, the Mandalorian bounty hunter, and yet Star Wars' name has been so thoroughly degraded to the point where people won't even show up for that. Granted, the Vespa scene certainly didn't help either. Meanwhile, streaming television began to implode as Netflix entered an era of desperation, and the bill for the massive Warner Bros. Discovery merger came due. Both of these monumental upsets manifested in alarmingly similar ways: sudden, drastic, and barely justified cuts to animated programming and a bastion of shows that featured both diverse characters and employed diverse creators. Correct. As what they don't mention here is that it wasn't just animated shows. Basically everything that was getting slaughtered was just that. It was diverse, it was representative, it was woke. And the express reason for why it was being cut was because it was woke. Again, Netflix has been seeing the writing on the wall for quite some time and has been moving away from woke entertainment. Maverick, if anything, was simply just the last absolute hammering home of the point. Warner Bros. Discovery has specifically moved towards de-representating their writer's room. They're trying to kick every single diversity hire to the curb as quickly as they can, whilst avoiding the inevitable industry backlash it will cause, as the institutions, not the audience, the institutions try to stop them from doing so. And I love this too. So they're trying to present a positive thing here. Like, look, there's still things. The audience are still looking for diversity, you see. In response, audiences turn elsewhere. Among this year's biggest stories in cinema is the runaway success of a Telugu blockbuster RRR. So I'd never heard of this, much like I'd never heard of most of these examples, again, all leading to Polygon articles, but this is apparently some kind of Indian movie that grossed 175 million from a budget of, I think it was 55 or something. Like, don't get me wrong, that's excellent, definitely, it's pretty good, but it's a gnat on an elephant's ass in comparison to Maverick. It's not even comparable. Like, the runaway success. Okay, it's triple its money. That's good, don't get me wrong, but it's not a runaway success. Target biggest success in Revolution, as House of the Dragon and Andor took familiar iconography and fashioned it into the stories of rebellion. No, it didn't. It absolutely didn't. Like, House of the Dragon has nothing to do with a revolution or a rebellion. House of the Dragon is awful, in my opinion. I mean, in comparison to Rings of Power, I suppose it was certainly an upturn, but it was not a good television show. It genuinely wasn't. It had predictable and boring storytelling, flat and uninteresting characters, and oh my god, the plot. Like, you could tell the storylines an hour before they bloody appeared. But it certainly was not a revolution in any way, not even in the story. And Andor is literally a story about a dude trying to not be revolutionary because he doesn't want to, and then being forced by the plot circumstances to eventually join the revolution. I mean, how the only part about that was interesting was the spying and the intrigue. Again, the Imperial Security Bureau was probably the best focus of the show, and I'm sad they didn't have more of it. Reflecting a motion of nationwide unrest. Yes, in that nobody showed up to watch Andor. Labour took the spotlight and acclaimed, Labour? Severance? Labour? What? I don't think Severance was really about Labour. I think Severance, if anything, which was God, I did not like Severance. I watched it hoping I would eventually be interested, but if anything, Severance is the spotlight on the dehumanizing nature of not Labour, but of work environments where people are not treated like human beings anymore, and they are simply reduced to an item, a separate entity, you know, like your skin color, or your gender, for example, but hey, details. These things, I haven't even heard about them, and hating the rich might even be cool again. See, here's the thing again. They're trying to spin this as some core form of, oh, wokeism is still popular, guys, it's still fine, stay woke. Okay. Hating the rich is still popular because you are the rich. Hating the elites is what is popular. When you say the rich, I imagine Klaus Schwab. I imagine hating Klaus Schwab as him being tickled to death by a gaggle of sadistic ferrets and weasels, you know, so that he can be surrounded by his friends and family and kin as he dies. I'm not a monster after all. The disconcerting thing about being a passive observer in all this, either as a casual viewer of entertainment or as a critic, is the resolute insistence on carrying on as if things were normal, fretting over box office numbers. Don't worry that everything has failed. It's not our fault. It's not it's COVID. You see, that's the problem. Feels odd when the reason said numbers were depressed in the first place. A pandemic is still ongoing. When films did connect, like Top Gun Maverick, or the sleeper horror hit Smile, I know what this, or the year-end Avatar The Way of Water, the reason cited was often a very thing Jordan Pelope's Nope cautioned against earlier this summer, the all-consuming more of spectacle. Correct. When people go to the cinema, they don't want to be lectured to. They don't want to be given a speech. They want to see fighter jets or retarded blue cat aliens fire guns and bows and arrows at shit. That's why people go to the cinema. That is what gets asses into the seats. Not the messaging, the movie does. Then goes on to waffle on about this for quite some time here, or as a generally disconcerting, nonsensical ideas, like the rings of power to the dodgy cynicism, holy hell, or the multiverse exploring the MCU, and Spider-Man No Way Home, a film that's built on the stolen franchise valor. Stolen franchise valor. That's quite a way to put it, isn't it? The truth, at the end of the day, is very, very simple. It is that this right here, and bearing in mind too, Maverick was a pretty diverse movie too. It was not all white, it was not lacking in a representation, it simply put the story above these things. This is what is going to be popular in the future. This is what is going to sell tickets. This is what's going to pump up the streaming numbers, and everybody knows it. Netflix knows it, which is why it's firing its diversity hires and stating that if you're not interested in making entertainment, you've got no place in Netflix. Warner Bros. Discovery knows it as it tries to get rid of its diversity hire programming. Even Disney is beginning to learn this lesson as Disney hasn't produced a big hit in years now. It has been focused too much on the political messaging and too little on actual entertainment to create anything that people want to watch, and is essentially coasting on their old privileges. They are coasting on their theme parks, which is nothing more than sheer nostalgia of what Disney was 20 years ago. And with DeSantis being a rather based little bastard in Florida, it's a question about how long that is sustainable as well. The woke mind virus, as Elon Musk ever so famously put it, might finally be dying. It is a tragedy that the host body is probably going to have to succumb as well, at least for a few years, but it also means that when we finally get that resurgence, it will hopefully be a phoenix from the flame. The next fantasy show we are going to get is hopefully going to be an epic and remarkable one, rather than a Blood Origins, or a Ring of Power, or a Wheel of Time. Maybe we can get another Rome, for example. Oh, wouldn't that be fantastic? Or another Spartacus instead of this absolute tripe. And the beauty of it all, spectacle. Pure, unvarnished spectacle. That is the future. Cool shit for cool stories in cool settings. Fantasy is dead. Long live fantasy. Until next time, I've been Arch. Thank you all very much for watching, and I hope to see you all again soon. Have a good day.